Sunita, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today on our 57th session, our first session for September. Thank you so much for joining us, advisors and clients and small business owners that are not yet our clients. Let me introduce everyone here today. This is produced by SBDC Finance Center. The way we were able to provide this at no cost to everyone is by grants from SBA and the state of California. We have 36 centers throughout the Northern California SBD centers. We are one of them, and we are able to help everyone in the region. There are also local centers that you can find at sbdc.com or ASKSBDC.com. The Finance Center, Scott Rogalski usually puts this on Mondays and Wednesdays, but unfortunately was not able to be here today. So I am here today, Sunita Maharaj, the Associate Director. Also, Michael Ballstad, a Regional Director with the Finance Center. We have Alan Montag here also helping us today. Janelle with SBA. Kate Tyler with the Case Force. And I believe there's one more attorney, Cooper, who will be joining us in probably in the next half an hour or so. We're going to change things up just a little bit because SBA does have to leave early today. So we're going to try and get them out of here as soon as we can. Today, the agenda, we're going to go over the disclaimer. SBA is going to give any updates that they have. Then we'll go over EIDL and PPP parameters, PPP loan forgiveness information, upcoming webinars. We're also going to take a poll today that Alan has already graciously set up for us. Case for Attorney Coalition will be after that, so please have your questions ready for them. Please put them in the Q&A, and then you can put Case Force before, or you can put Kate, or you can put Cooper, whoever it directly relates to, or attorney, and we'll figure it out. And then Q&A. So let's go through the disclaimer really quick. Things are changing all the time. This is what we've been saying since almost day one. This information was correct. Sorry, I know my internet seems to be unstable. I apologize. So if I have to go just take my picture away, I'll do that. EIDL is accepting applications for most businesses, including 501c, 3, 4, and 6. The advance is no longer available, unfortunately. Please do not hesitate though to apply for EIDL. We still find that there are clients, businesses that don't know about EIDL. If you are an advisor, please let your clients know about EIDL. Even though if they're not thinking about disaster, they may still be able to qualify for a disaster loan. Also, tell your friends, tell your family, tell other business owners that you know locally or not local. They can apply for that any state. Unfortunately, PPP is also closed out. So I am going to hand this off to, I'm going to go to a different slide, I apologize, for SBA, and I'll put their information up on the screen. So Janelle Green with SBA is here to give you some updated information and tell you a little bit about what they have regarding webinars coming up.
Thank you, Sunita, and it's a pleasure to be here as always. So I don't have any program updates at this time. You know, as Sunita mentioned, the Paycheck Protection Program does remain closed. Just have some highlights I want to share from our outreach calendar for this week. So tomorrow, so Thursday, 9 a.m., we have a detailed overview of SBA loan programs. It's a webinar featuring COVID-19 relief programs, our standard loan programs, and also federal contracting programs. And that's for a full hour where we do a deeper dive. And then at 1 p.m. tomorrow, we are partnering on a webinar with the Capital Region SBDC. I'm going to give an overview on programs, and then the Capital Region SBDC is going to discuss strategies to pivot one's business. So if you are interested in these webinars, you want to see other ones that we are going to be producing, you know, we update our calendar on a regular basis. Please visit our website where you can see dates and you can register directly. Our website is sba.gov/ca/Sacramento. So please feel free to join us tomorrow or on another date for one of our webinars. And you know, thank you as always for the airtime.
Thank you, Janelle. Appreciate it. Let me go back to the slides. I also want to let everybody know that Mike Ballstead will be answering questions in the Q&A, and he will leave the ones that are that we believe that would be best served to answer live, and also for the attorneys will be answered live. I'm going to go back to the beginning here. We've seen this slide often if you've been here for throughout the weeks. But if you are new here, we want to make sure you have this information. So these are the parameters for the EIDL and the PPP loans that are SBA backed. EIDL is granted by SBA. You would apply at sba.gov for this loan. PPP loans were provided by lenders, which were a bank or smaller lending firms, online lending firms as well. Some of the parameters for these loans, the EIDL is a 3.75 for profit loans, for profit businesses, and 2.75 for nonprofits. 30-year term, payment is deferred 11 months and starts the 12th month. Your interest accrues the day that you get this loan. So collateral over $25,000 and a personal guarantee over $200,000. So UCC will be taken for anything for a loan that was over $25,000. Forgivable, unfortunately, none of it is forgivable, but you do have 30 years to pay this off. Most businesses are for profit, so it'd be at 3.75. You can use this money, this is where it gets a little confusing. You can use this money for operating expenses, so cost of goods, interest debt payments. You cannot use it for expansion, paying off full amount of loans. If you decide to get a new piece of equipment, you can definitely do that, but you can use the money to pay payments on it, not to pay it off in full. You can also not use it for tax liens. But if it's normally you're paying your taxes with that money, then yes, you can use that money for that, but not back taxes owed, especially in full. And the PPP, your parameters are, it's a 1% loan, and it can be for 2 years or 5 years. Most people that were funded, or everyone that was funded before June 30th, their term is 2 years. Everyone that received their funds after the 5th or signed their note after the June 30th, then you have 5 years to pay. You are able to negotiate with your lender. Hopefully they will change it to 5 years, but that should be something, once you're ready for forgiveness, we can assist you with that and take a look, even if there is a loan to be had. So hopefully you've spent the money correctly and there is no loan that's going to come from this at all. And we can help you look through your paperwork, and we can help you look through your application to figure that out. Your first payment is after the 10th month, but your interest also accrues as of the first day. So if you end up owing $5,000, that interest would have accrued since the day you received it, just for that $5,000. There's no collateral or personal guarantee required, and it can be up to 100% forgiven. 60% or more should be paid towards payroll costs, and we'll go over what that is. 40% utilities, which includes mortgage interest, monthly payments, and also your rent. Workers' comp, federal taxes, and employee portion of benefits is not an allowed item for the use of PPP. If you've run out of your PPP already and you also have EIDL, you can use your EIDL funds to pay what PPP was paying. So that is okay. You just can't use the two funds at the exact same time. Required documents. How you can get this information is you can actually go to the Treasury Department website, and this is it, or actually a SBA. PPP loan forgiveness calculation form is page 3 of the application. You can go there and fill out all this information, and then you'll figure out if how much is going to be forgiven. You'll also need the PPP Schedule A, page 4 of the application. When you look at these documents, they look very similar to what you would use, I think, for your tax returns. So the schedules that are in the back of the tax returns on how you fill that out, it's just really, you take that information and you fill out, that's how you fill it out. We can assist you one-on-one with that as well, because we will need to see your documents to figure out what applies and what doesn't apply. General PPP facts. This is something I want to say every single time, because I want to make sure that you understand that there are certain individuals that can use the EZ form. This is going to take a lot of headache away from you if you just use the EZ form. Sole props, independent contractors, self-employed individuals with no employees should complete. And I believe during one of our polls a couple of weeks ago, there were a lot of Schedule C individuals that do not have employees. So many of you can use, or all of you can use this the 308 EZ form. As long as the borrower submits the loan forgiveness app within the 10 months of the completion of the covered period, and the covered period can be from 8 weeks if you funded prior to June 30th. After that, everyone has 24 weeks to spend that money. So if you funded before June 30th, you have 8 weeks or 24 weeks. If you funded after that or signed docs after that, then you have 24 weeks to be able to spend that money. You can spend it in shorter amount of time, 10 weeks possibly, or 12 weeks, but you have that allotment to be able to spend it in that amount of time. You don't have to make payments right away during those 10 months, but if you talk to us, if you give us a call and we help you through this, we're going to try and make sure that you spent the money correctly, so that way you get 100% forgiveness. And we've been talking about forgiveness for quite a long time and how to spend this money. Loan forgiveness, payroll costs. The caveat to this is, I know I'm on here, it gets a little confusing. So it says payroll costs incurred during the covered period, but paid after the covered period is eligible for forgiveness. And then the payroll costs incurred before the covered period, but paid during the covered period are eligible for forgiveness. This is if you're biweekly, if you pay biweekly or more often. So then you can use these terms. The covered period, and then the covered period for everybody ends on 12/31/2020. If you do not pay biweekly, or if you pay or biweekly or less than that, or more frequently, give us a call so that way we can assist you to make sure that these two caveats above apply to you. Cash compensation to your employees. You can use you don't have to use the net, you can use the gross amount. So to pay your employees, you can use your gross amount, not the net amount. And that is going to go towards forgiveness. Payroll costs include tips, commission, bonuses, and hazard pay. If you previously didn't pay a bonus, you can pay a bonus now without those funds. That is allowed. If you previously didn't pay hazard pay, you can pay hazard pay now with those funds. I know there was confusion in the beginning because we stated that to make sure you follow what you paid before is what you're going to start to pay now. But if you wanted to give them a bonus to bring them back to work, or hazard pay, depending on the type of business that you're in, you can do that. Cash compensation per employee is still limited. So it's limited to $100,000 with the bonuses and the hazard pay. Amount of compensation for owner employees that is eligible for forgiveness depends on if it's going to be 8 weeks or 24 weeks. So 8 weeks, you're maxed out at $15,385,000. 24 weeks is $20,833. Loan forgiveness. This is for healthcare and retirement. You can pay the employer portion of healthcare and retirement. That is allowed. You just cannot pay the employee's portion. It is not allowed to use the PPP funds to pay the employee portion. You can only pay the employer portion. And it has to be either during the covered period and say the bill is due after a covered period is over, that is still okay. So it's during the covered period that you incurred those costs. Loan forgiveness, non-payroll costs. Eligible business mortgage interest is allowed. Rent, lease costs, and business utility costs incurred during the covered period and then after the covered period, or during the covered period, it can be paid after the covered period if the bill is due possibly the next day or week or so. Non-payroll costs are eligible for loan forgiveness if they were incurred during the covered period and paid on before the next billing date, even if the billing date is after the covered period. Payments of interest on business mortgages on real or personal property, even an auto loan, are eligible for the loan forgiveness. Interest on unsecured credit is not eligible for forgiveness. So these are the terms we've gone over before as well. Just to let you know, if you had a lease prior to February 15th and that expired after that, but you renewed it, that's okay to use the funds towards that, your PPP funds towards that. But if you did not have a lease prior to that, then no, those funds are not appropriate to use after February 15th. We've already gone through SBA support. Thank you so much, Janelle, for joining us today. Here is the information. It's I will say it just in case if you are on the phone and you cannot see this slide, I will give you the information really quickly. SBA Loan Support, SBA will automatically pay the principal and interest of current fully funded 7A, 504, and microloans for 6 months. So if funds today, they will pay it up to 6 months. SBA will also automatically pay the interest, principal, and fees of new 7A 504 microloans funded prior to September 27th, 2020. Many lenders are letting us know that if you have not submitted your documentation now, they possibly will not fund by, and it would have to be the Friday before, so the 25th, September 25th. So if you are thinking about this, you really need to jump on it right away and get your documents into a lender. If you need assistance with that, please give us a call right away so that we can help you with that. SBA disaster contact information, if you needed to give them a call, it's 800-659-2955. Their email address is disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. If you have a declined EIDL loan, you can resubmit. We can also assist you with that to get paperwork together to make sure that hopefully you can get reconsidered. Their reconsideration email is pdcrecons@sba.gov. If you need servicing help, we also have that number, 800-487-6019. CaseForce is going to be next. We can go ahead, let me see. We can go ahead, and this is their disclaimer. These office hours are intended to be a resource for small businesses with fewer than 25 employees and nonprofits to learn information about various resources and legal issues relevant to the COVID-19 pandemic. They're not intended to offer legal advice, and the leaders of the office hours are not able to represent office hour participants as their attorneys. This session is intended to address issues related to the pandemic, and panelists are able to comment on general non-pandemic. They're not able to comment on general or non-pandemic related issues. So I'd like to introduce Kate Tyler. She is general corporate law is what she specializes in. And I believe Cooper Spinelli is here. I'm sorry, I can't see him on.
Yes, he is.
Okay, perfect. And he specializes in employment law. So thank you both for being here today. And I'm not sure if either of you have any updates to provide to us today or any best practices or tidbits you'd like to share.
It looks like possibly not.
No, not for me.
Okay, perfect. Mike Balstead, do you want to take it from here and see if there's a Q&A
Sure.
question? Awesome.
There are. So I see a question in here. I've been trying to keep up with a number of them along the way. We've been typing in the answers, so please feel free to look in. I've also included a link for the 3508EZ form that someone requested. That's there in the responses. I have a question from Juliana Mendez that is asking about PPP loan forgiveness. It says, when including payroll costs and utilities in the loan forgiveness application, can you include those that were incurred and paid within the covered period? For example, if there was a utility bill from January that was paid within the covered 8-week period, does that count towards loan forgiveness since it was paid within the 8-week covered period? All right, so the first piece she asked about was payroll costs. So payroll costs that are paid within the covered period but were incurred prior can be included for the purposes of forgiveness. As well, non-payroll expenses such as utility costs, mortgage interest costs, and business rent or lease costs that are incurred prior to the covered period and paid during the covered period are eligible for loan forgiveness. And then non-payroll costs are eligible for loan forgiveness if they were incurred during the covered period and paid on or before the next regular billing date, even if that was after the covered period. So only in that circumstance that you might have had utilities that fell within your covered period and the billing date wasn't until after your covered period was over, you would be able to include that bill that you paid at that time and include that for forgiveness.
Awesome. Mike, I'm just going to jump in really quick because I know that Alan has to leave at 11 and David's going to take over, but I'd really love to be able to do our poll right now since we're kind of in the middle of it and Case Force does not have any updates. So if we could do that, Alan, that would be wonderful.
Yep, the poll is going. So there are 3 questions in the poll, so please make sure you fill in all of them. First one is about trying to understand who's here. So are you an advisor yourself? Are you a small business owner who's not yet a client of ours, or are you an existing client? We also want to find out how many of these you've been to before. So is this your first time in the Q&A? Have you been to a few of them, several of them, lots of them, almost all of them, or all of them? And do you think do you see yourself probably coming through the end of September? So yes, no, probably. You know, depends when the murder hornets arrive. I don't know. Maybe we should put an extra option on there for the unexpected thing that could happen in September. But please give us a bit of input on who you are, and that helps us make sure we're doing what you need. I'll leave that open while we go pick up some questions, Mike.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alan.
Another question here with regard to forgiveness for a sole proprietor. And real quick, Sunita,
yes.
The 3508 can be used by a sole proprietor? The easy
That's
form?
correct. Okay. Yes.
So yeah,
As
so
long
the answer to this one, Stephanie had a question. If a sole proprietor, no employees, is filling out the 3508EZ and has no employees, do they need to count themselves as the one employee on the application? Yes, you're the only person on the application, and as was listed in the presentation, I'll get back to the slide, it talks about what the limits are dependent on whether you chose the 8 or 24 week covered period. So let me get back to my slide for that. Or actually, Sunita, you might even know that one off the top of your head.
Which one?
The maximum that sole proprietors can take as payroll in the if you're on 8-week covered period, Stephanie, the max you could have is $15,385. And for a 24-week period, the max is $20,833. And where those numbers come from is the annual cap is $100,000 of creditable compensation. So that's based on those number of weeks, that works out to be those numbers. Okay, get back to the questions here. So we've got that.
And while we're waiting for those, just a quick note on some of the webinars we've got coming up. We've got quite a lot of focus on some of the e-commerce support. So we've got something on SEO, we've got something on Facebook Shop for Business. So we had a webinar back early last month on, or month before last, on social selling, and the majority of people who were interested in the next piece on that were interested on the Facebook Shop. So that's what we're doing. And we got one on Shopify and how to bring that up. We've got a couple of things around cash flow and credit. So we've got one on how to take control of your credit. So that's credit management, credit repair. That's in towards the end of September, and on right at the beginning of October, we've got a repeat of the Paul Bazo session on how to manage and forecast your cash flow. And another one that's on there is our repeat of the section of the webinar that Chana Anderson ran on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. It's probably one of the highest rated webinars we've had in terms of people appreciating it and learning from it, and with the current tensions, something we think everybody should know about. So that's some of the webinars. You can get to that on SBDC events/network calendar, where you can see not just those events which are put on by the region, but every event put on by every one of our 30-something centers across the network. And of course, because they're pretty much all webinars these days, that means anyone can go and can view anything from anywhere. Go make the maximum possible use of your tax dollars at work by attending as many of those as you can. All right, Mike, I'll let you take questions back, and maybe we can throw a couple of them at our attorney colleagues.
Yes, I was looking at a couple of payrolls here, or rather legal. How did it go here? A lot of new questions have been popping up. Okay, so I have, for the attorneys, I have a question from Shane that says, can I exit my lease by saying it is a frustrated contract?
Oh.
I'm actually not familiar with the term frustrated contract. I'm assuming that he probably means that there is some sort of force majeure, or that the pandemic constitutes some sort of event outside of everyone's control. So you'd have to refer to the lease provisions and see what the provisions say about being able to terminate on that basis.
Mike, you seem to be muted, or just moving your lips and not talking.
But was the mic not picking me up?
No, we didn't hear a word. I just saw it.
Wow.
Okay.
I guess I was just speaking too quietly. Okay, I was just saying, Shane, I hope that answered your question. If not, please put in some clarification what you're looking for. Okay, so I have a question here with regard to healthcare. Let's see. Question is for healthcare costs, and this is for Juliana again. Can they be included in loan forgiveness if they were incurred before the covered period but paid in the covered period? Yes, you can do that if you paid it within the covered period. And again, that is only for the employer portion, not the employee portion of the health coverage.
I'm just going to close off our poll in another few seconds. We've got nearly 2/3 of the folks have voted. Please remember to vote and then hit the submit button at the bottom so that we can count your votes. Just like in November, every vote counts.
Yes, I'd really appreciate everyone to fill it out, so that way, sorry, because that was me, I hit the
No, we're still good.
The wrong thing. So that way we know exactly what we can do for you going forward. Make sure it's relevant to what you need. We do have Linda Siniard, who is our HR specialist. She's going to be back on the 21st to help with all those HR PUA questions as well. So we'll have somebody on Mondays to be able to answer that question, probably other week. And then, of course, some of that can also be answered here today by Kate or David or Cooper, if possible.
I'm going to close off the poll in 3, 2, 1. There you go. Do you want me to share the results so everyone can see whether they're part of the biggest group? I mean, don't matter anyway, what the hell. So most of you are actually, it's almost a three-way split between current advisors, people who aren't yet a client. How can you not be a client when you see the fabulous service we're providing you? And people who are existing clients, which is just out in the lead, thank God. Most of you have been to several of these, but as we expect, normally there's 12 of you who this is your first, so welcome. We'll see you on a few more of these, I'm sure. And a few diehards who've been on pretty much all of them. And most people would like these to continue. So 75% see themselves coming back for sure, and 25% probably. So I guess the people have spoken, Sunita. We're going to be keeping these going at least through September.
Good. We'll be here. And Ellen, is there a way for you to send me the results on this so that way I can share it with
I can do that for you, no problem. Yes.
Thank you so much. So let's get back to the questions, the Q&A. That's why everyone's here, right? Here's some great questions here today. So thank you for these.
Okay,
I think, Mike, we can't hear you again.
Again? You can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
I guess I'm gonna have to yell. I don't know what's going on with my microphone. All right, so I have a question from Samuel. It says, for PPP forgiveness, do you need to use the gross payroll amount, or can you deduct the federal taxes that are not allowed in your forgiveness?
That's, yeah, that's correct, Samuel. So
yeah.
Total amount, and then you would back out the federal taxes. So after you back that out, that's what you'll be able to get forgiveness for. So for me, visually, that's how I have to think about it. The total here, and then back out the federal taxes that were paid. And then the third line would be the amount that's actually you're able to take for forgiveness. Right, Mike? That's just how I think about things, but yes. I'm sure other people think other ways.
Yes, and I'm going to go back to Kate if I can. Shane did include something else here in the Q&A. There is a website he included that, and I don't know if there's a way to show this to you. It says, I received this for our local business development office. This is what I meant by a frustrated contract. And there is a link in the Q&A section. Are you able to see that?
No, is it towards the bottom of the list?
Yeah. Yes, it's 4 from the bottom. It's from a Shane McGrath.
Okay, I'll send it to you directly in chat.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, somebody's just got rid of it.
I sent it to the very top. I'm having internet issues, so I'm going to stop video.
Okay. Give me a chance to look at this, and then we can come back to it.
Sure. And is Cooper on the call as well? I'm actually on another screen. I'm trying to get some answers to things. Are you there, Cooper?
I'm here.
Excellent. So I've got another one here. It says, this is Bill's question. He says, I've asked this before, but never got a good answer. Hypothetical legal question for Kate and/or Cooper. I know you are not real estate specialists, but what is your best opinion on the following? We are familiar with the current pandemic and that restaurants, gyms, salons are prevented by government order from using their buildings, but tenants are still obligated by the agreement to pay rent. In 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant meltdown rendered 30 miles around the nuclear power plant with a population of 125,000 people uninhabitable indefinitely. If this nuclear disaster happened in the US, does US law require a tenant with a commercial lease within that zone to continue to pay rent for the full lease term, as apparently it does for the pandemic?
I have no idea. I think that's a very fact-specific question that a court would have to adjudicate. And I understand what this person is asking. They're analogizing the pandemic to the nuclear disaster situation, you know, essentially arguing that the property isn't usable due to the pandemic. I think a court would have to render a decision in that respect. But as of right now, unless there is some sort of specific clause in your lease, you are still obligated to pay the rent under the terms of that lease.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so here's another one that has to do with, it would be somebody who would be experienced with EDD. Pre-COVID ex-employees who voluntarily quit or are fired filed for unemployment insurance claims and draw from my account. I retested them, but haven't heard from EDD except for one case. EDD is impossible to contact, and previous Zoom call mentioned, or previous, I think it meant previous Zoom call mentioned a Chronicle article. Is there a different way for employers to contact EDD?
I'm not aware of one, and other than to say I know that a lot of the legislature, this is a big problem that the legislature is trying to address, and I think they're encouraging employers to reach out to their local representatives. But otherwise, I'm not aware of any particular way for an employer to contact the EDD other than what's already been recommended in that Chronicle article.
Excellent, thank you so much. Okay. Jane Kaplan asks, if I file the application for forgiveness in September, are employees recounted in 12/31 of 20? Yes, you have till the end of your 24-week period to recover the number of employees that you had that were assessed from your 941s when you applied. So to get yourself back to full head count. That said, if you have any shortfall in the number of employees you have, you can also be looking at the few exceptions that are available, and that would be based on, you know, whether you had employees that weren't willing to come back or there just weren't employees available. And I would say call 833-ASK-SBDC, and you could talk with one of our folks one-on-one and go through your specific situation. We'd be glad to help you with that.
Mike, I just want to interject really quickly. An advisor had put into the Q&A stating that it depends on the bank on what documents are required for PPP. Just as FYI, your lender can ask for any documents that they need. At minimum, they have to provide what SBA is requesting them to provide. So that is a minimum. 641s you need, keep your receipts, keep your bank statements, keep everything. We've been saying this from day one. If you think you don't need it, keep it. It is just best practice for you to keep all documents. So thank you, Bob, for stating that. We want to make sure that everyone knows that if the bank is asking you for more documentation, they can. They are the ones that lent the money.
And there was a question with regard to, can an idle loan be increased after it is funded, or do you need to apply for a new loan and pay off the existing one? And I know, Sunita, you had told me about this before, and I think it was on a previous call. Do you know which email address that they would reach out to for consideration of an increase?
Yes, so PD Recons would be the email address. I can send it back to that SBA.
I will go ahead and put that in the chat.
It's the reconsideration email towards the bottom, second to last, pdcrecons@sba.gov. Now you'll have to make sure that you have your tax returns Your current profit and loss statement, tax 2019 should be filed. They're going to look at those documents to see if indeed it's warranted that you need additional funds. I know the process, I'm not sure how long that process takes, but you do need to have backup documentation. You need to sign also 4506T. If you don't know what any of those documents are, please reach out to us, 833 ASKSBDC.
Okay, so Jesse is asking, my idle money is exhausted, but my business still can't reopen. If the business closes permanently and can't pay back the loan when payments become due in the near future, who can I contact at SBA?
They're going to contact servicing. So you can, it's servicing for disaster is different than servicing for regular SBA loans. There's two different divisions. So servicing
would that be the one that's the ELPA El Paso DLSC at SBA.gov?
Correct.
All right.
So
I'll put that in
the chat as well. So it's ELPASO DLC SC, sorry, at SBA.gov, and it's 800-487-6019. I think there's a great one for Maria, and this might be something that Kate or Cooper could answer. I had an employee that caught the virus. I shut down for a week. There were a total of 8 employees. Does the 7 employees file unemployment for that week, or do I pay the employee with the virus? And it's from Maria DeSouza. What I can do is I will thumbs up and it'll go to the top-ish. Yeah, should go towards the top. So it's the second one in line from the top.
Yeah, I have one from Vivian here, real quick. It says, what about a sole prop? You had 1099 contractors working for you prior to the pandemic and during, and use them when the PPP was funded. Can we convert the 1099 to W-2 so we can pay them with the PPP?
If you hired new employees, then you can use the PPP towards that money. You have to be careful if those 1099 people have also filed for PPP, then that means that they're double dipping, and in actuality, no, you can't give them PPP money.
And the other question too is, what did you base your PP, what was that based on? Would there still be enough to pay out everybody that you had prior?
So are we not able to give Maria an answer, guys? Sorry, because then that way, if she can, if you want to email us or call us at 833 ASKSBDC, and hopefully we can get an answer for you, unless Cooper, you're able to give something to her.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what she means by pay them with the virus, but if she shut down the place of business and wasn't able to pay the 7 employees for a week, then I would think that there would be the course of action would for them to apply for the unemployment for that week.
I think with do I pay the employee with the virus, she's asking if that employee is supposed to receive some sort of sick pay, or if they also are to go on unemployment.
No, they wouldn't. I mean, the 7 employees, if they weren't sick, they wouldn't be receiving sick pay for that. I mean, what I take it from her is just that one employee was sick, so she shut the place of business down for a week, and then what to do with the other 7 employees for that week that they weren't paid.
Yes, so then you would pay them, pay that one employee that has COVID for sick pay. They'd have to exhaust their pay, I'm assuming, and then maybe use their PTO. But that's a great question. You can also ask, we have our HR specialist. Give us a call at 833-ASK-SBDC.
Right. And Sunita, I have one for you here. I wanted to refi our fourplex via the 504, but have been told that it does not qualify because it's a passive business. My wife and I actively manage, maintain, and repair the units, and also claim this business as quote unquote active on our taxes. It is our business, is rented to the tenants who comprise our business activity, so it is 100% occupied by the biz. Please advise.
If it's a residential business, if it's a residential fourplex, then no, it doesn't qualify for a business loan. You would have to go to a mortgage lender for that. If it is a, say, only businesses are run out of there, so then we'd have to evaluate, look it up and see how it's being evaluated by the city. Is it residential or is it commercial? Commercial, yes, you can get a business loan. Residential, no.
Right. Can I use the PPP and idle to pay the same thing? Can I pay for my rent from both PPP and idle funds? That was also from Shane. And so, the issue is you cannot double dip. You can't pay for the same. So at the very least, you can't pay the same periods. So you couldn't, if you were using idle, for instance, if you had PPP and you spent that out towards payroll, once that was exhausted, then you could then use it. You could use it from your idle to pay for those periods after that. And Sunita, would that be the same considering rent or anything else, the double dipping question?
That's correct. So you cannot use PPP and idle at the same time for the same things. Once you've exhausted your PPP, then you start using your idle. So just be very careful. You can use your idle for other things if you have them at the same time. Exhaust your PPP, and then you can start using your idle towards payroll, rent, utilities, those sorts of things.
Here's one that I don't know the legal ramifications beyond. So please explain what may happen if a business uses PPP to purchase equipment or for non-forgivable uses. Will the business have to repay funds as a 1% loan over term?
Sorry, that's, who is that from? Sorry, I was answering.
That is from Andy.
Andy is asking whatever, okay, well, please explain that. Yes, that amount will turn into a loan, and it's either 2 years or 5 years. And if you know you've spent it incorrectly, you should contact the lender right away, and hopefully they can start. You can start paying that off now. And the reason is that if you wait the 10 months, then you're going to be, all that interest is accruing over time, and their payments are going to end up being higher. So if you start paying that down now, your payments won't be as high. So contact your lender, Andy, and I would start paying on that if you did not use the funds correctly. And also on your note, it says how exactly the money should be used. They could ask to pull the note, which I doubt they'll do, but that is some sort of the recourses. They'll ask that since the money wasn't used correctly, to go ahead and refinance it out and get a new loan at different terms. Hopefully they won't though, Andy, but those are possibilities.
Okay, I can respond to the frustrated contract question.
Thank you.
So I looked at the link, and the link was about a doctrine called frustration of purpose, which essentially means that the purpose for which the parties entered into the contract, in this case a lease, is no longer being served due to circumstances outside of their control, i.e. the pandemic. So to answer the question, you cannot, if the landlord is not letting you out of the lease, or is requiring you to pay a penalty or something to that effect, you can't just cite frustration of purpose and say, sorry, I'm not paying. I mean, you can, but the landlord could still take you to court, and you would have to adjudicate the fact specific circumstances of your particular situation. You know, why is that, what type of property is it, what type of business, why is it no longer usable, et cetera, et cetera. So there isn't a one size fits all answer for this sort of situation. And there's nothing that's codified in law. These are court decisions. So a court would have to decide if your particular set of circumstances, you know, met whatever the frustration of purpose test is.
Kate, I have one other new one here for you. This is from Amporn, and it says, is the new extended eviction law signed yesterday applied only to residential leases?
I wasn't able to see any formal order, but based upon what I read, it appears that it is only residential. But I would need to look into that further to confirm.
Is there a way that we could flag this and keep it and get that over to her so she could respond to it later?
David, is there a way for you to copy that? I can't copy that email. Or if that person can put their email address in the chat.
Yeah, why don't they reach out via chat and I can take it from there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have from Vivian, will we use the Schedule C line 31 net profit of the sole proprietor? She had a 1099 or Schedule C plus her self-taxes 2019, which is the one used to file the application. She was thinking of converting the 1099 in 2019 into a W-2 now that she got the PPP and pay that employee.
I believe we answered that question previously.
It was very, yeah, it just is reworded. But effectively, yeah, I mean, you can make them an employee and you're going to take on the liabilities and responsibilities thereof. You're going to take on the payroll tax and all of those other issues as well. I would also suggest that, you know, because you do ask the tax question there, we cannot answer tax questions. I would contact your accountant for any specific advice around that and what those impacts might be to your business. Okay, we have Aaron. What about startup phase of a business and acquiring property? So there is, SBA loans are still available, and part of that is that they do have currently that any SBA loans that are fully funded by the 27th of September, the first 6 months are paid for. Now, you know, we're on the 2nd, so, you know, it would be pretty difficult to get one of those, if you haven't already applied, to get one of those loans done by that point. But you could still apply for a loan and you would just have payments due at that time. Okay, if you use your home as your office, can you use the PPP loan to pay the full rent or partial or nothing? So I would, go ahead, Sunita.
Sorry, just the interest portion, if that is your home, so just the interest portion.
Answer that. Just want to clarify, the owner didn't take any pay before. Is it still okay to take pay from the S Corp using PPP? So for a sole proprietor, you're able to do that, but in an S Corp, you have to be an employee. So they're going to base PPP for an owner based on whatever their W-2 income was.
So Forrest, you're asking some great questions in regards to the S Corp and how money is to be used. We need to see your tax returns and exactly what happened last year and how that money was spent and how much you have, how much PPP money you receive. So please give us a call, 833-ASK-SBDC, so that way we can help walk you through this, because we would need more information from you than just the tidbits that we are getting. We need to see your everything. Somebody wants the link to the frustrated contract. Is it possible to put that in the chat?
I'm sorry, the link to the what?
Frustrated contract. Excuse me, I don't know if Kate has that info, if you're able to put that into the chat for us.
That was the link that you provided to me that's in the chat.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you.
So idle. Go ahead, Sunita.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, Cooper, Kate. Is the new extended eviction law signed yesterday applied only to residential leases?
We actually answered that one already.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. I think we have 1 minute, so we can answer one more question. I want to make sure that we allow Kate and Cooper to get back to their regular day. We want to have, do we have one more that maybe they can answer?
Looking through to see if there are any legal. Everything else I am seeing. Oh, actually, this one might. Okay, so this one has to do with EDD. What happens if you applied for PPP as a sole prop and waiting for it to start, you're receiving EDD for February until getting PPP in June. So now you have PPP of 5,900. Can you wait a couple of weeks before canceling the EDD? I'm sorry, were you two able to hear that question? Hello? What's going on?
We can hear you. We can hear you,
Oh,
Mike.
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, Cooper, there's a question. Oh, where did it go? Around unemployment. It's disappeared. Is there any way to put the question back in the thread?
I don't know where it went. I'm looking for it. Let's see.
Well, yeah, Mike, I heard the question that you just read, but I'm not sure about that answer on PPP as a sole prop and when you can cancel EDD.
Okay. Thank you.
There was a question you wanted to flag and come back to. That person hasn't reached out to me. Does anyone remember which one that was? I want to make sure we don't lose it.
They can also come back to us next Wednesday to ask that question, or they can email us at ASKSBDC.com, and that way we can get that over to Kate and Cooper. Hopefully they'll be able to answer that question. But it is past 11:30 now, and we want to thank everyone so much for joining us today. We will see you back here on Monday for more updates. We will also be here next Wednesday with Case Force. Kate and Cooper have been able to help us. I'm not sure if they're going to be the two helping us again next week, but hopefully so. So thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next Monday. Thank you, Mike Ballstad, Cooper Spinelli, Kate Tyler, David Franklin, Alan Montague, and Janelle Green from SBA. We appreciate your time. Take care, and if you have additional questions that were not answered today, please call us at 833-ASK-SBDC. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.